Charles Pop on YouTube. Star Wars. You know it, you loved it, till 2012. But have you ever wondered how the saga could have been altered if A New Hope wasn't as much of a smash hit as it had been? Well, you can actually, because it exists, and it has existed for like 45 years now, with Splinter of the Mind's Eye. What? Why is that the name of the book? It has absolutely nothing to do with the book. It doesn't sound remotely like a Star Wars title, and it really rolls off the tongue. Basically, this was a potential sequel to the original Star Wars that George Lucas had Alan Dean Foster write as a novel for him.
And I want you to get out of this office right now.
To adapt before the whole Empire Strikes Back thing happened. There are a lot of strange things afoot, like no Han on Chewbacca because Harrison Ford wasn't signed on for any sequels, and lots of inconsistencies, like Leia being a confirmed non-Force sensitive, Vader clearly not being Luke's dad, and Vader having a non-mechanical arm, and other stuff like lightsabers having to charge up, and anyway, we'll just jump right into it. So the story opens on Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia. C-3PO and R2-D2 are also here, but they don't really do anything, they're just there, so I'm probably not going to mention them ever again. But anyway, both Luke and Leia are in ships. Leia's in a Y-Wing, Luke's in an X-Wing, and they're going to some random bullshit planet to get them to join the rebellion. Anyway, because this book is very sexist, based and red-pilled, Princess Leia's ship spontaneously combusts and they have to crash on this planet, in the same system. They are landing there because they picked up a landing beacon and think they might be able to get help. So Luke and Leia crash on the planet and it becomes apparent that the two of them are thirsting hard for each other. And so they go through the jungle and find this random Imperial mining base that is secret and basically against all regulations and is illegal. Because the Empire actually cares about laws, apparently, in this version of the Star Wars canon, or at least pretends to. Anyway, Luke and Leia go to the pub, and in the pub they meet this kooky witch lady called Hala. Hala can do some extremely basic telekinesis with the Force, and she can feel that the Force is very strong with Luke. Because of this, she wants him to help her find something called the Kyber Crystal, which is this MacGuffin that is said to be hidden in a temple on this planet. Not a Jedi or Sith temple, just a random local temple. And in exchange for her smuggling them off-world, so they don't miss their super-duper important rebel meetup. Sorry, and this is Editing Thomas just butting in here because I actually realised I didn't specify what the Kyber Crystal actually does when I recorded and wrote the script, which I realised when going through it, I was like, hang on a sec, I didn't even specify what it does, which is pretty important to the context of the book. So basically, the Kyber Crystal is supposed to give whoever controls it total command over the Force, like just boosts you to like god levels of power with the Force. That's what it does, or was said to do. So that's important context. However, Luke and Leia decide to do a bit of mud wrestling. I'm not actually kidding, there is just a random mud wrestling scene here, and they get arrested because a bunch of miners decide they really want to fight them and rape Leia. So they get taken to Sergeant Grammel, who is this Imperial officer who runs the show on this planet. He gets this really great introduction where he is set up as this awful, evil, utterly single-minded and ruthless taskmaster. He recognises that Luke and Leia are off-worlders, and so he takes them away to be interrogated. He then talks to his boss, Governor Asada, who realises that this guy has just caught Luke and Leia, who are, wanted by the Empire for the whole Death Star fiasco. However, before he can secure them, with the aid of Hala and two aliens called Yuzums, which were in the prison cell with them, they're basically just bargain bin Wookiees. Anyway, they escape in carjacker transport. For some reason, Luke can speak Yuzum and are racing to the temple. After some hijinks involving a big worm monster, they all get captured by these native alien people. However, the Empire then catches up to them, led by none other than Darth Vader now, for some reason. Basically, he wants to catch Luke and Leia, and he senses that Luke is with the natives, so the heroes hastily set up a trap and absolutely BTFO the stormtroopers. This is just a slaughter. This is like the Zulus getting just decimated by the British, except kind of in reverse. And so Vader and Grammel retreat, but Vader has now sensed the Kyber Crystal, and now he wants it. He also kills Grammel because they got ambushed, so that was a waste of his character. Anyway, there's a race to get to it, and Luke thinks that they won, but then Darth Vader pops out when they get to the temple. He twirls his moustache for a bit, and then they have a fight. Somehow, Luke manages to chop off one of Vader's arms, and then Vader just straight up falls down a pit. Hala gets the Kyber Crystal, and then they all find a ship and get off planet, and the book ends. What? That was it? That was the proposed sequel to...
Yeah, I'm a big boy, got big boy guns, I prefer disintegration, fuck shit on stuff.
Okay, so this book is weird. It is so weird to read a non-George Lucas Star Wars story that was written before Star Wars was, well, Star Wars, I guess. I mean, this was considered to be the first entry into the Star Wars expanded universe, somehow, and was canon right up until the Disney purchase, somehow. Like, how was this ever considered canon? But it's an interesting read. For starters, the characters are just all over the place. Luke is weirdly confident and competent, and Leia is depicted in a way that I assume is literally just down to sexism. She's fearful and constantly hiding behind Luke, except for the time she straight up snipes Darth Vader. There was actually a scene where during the big battle scene, where she actually shoots Darth Vader, and he like rolls on the ground to dodge it, which is very out of character. But Leia's character work is really my biggest gripe here, probably, because it's just so all over the place. Most of what made her in Star Wars is straight up abandoned. That sort of fierce, confident leader, it's gone. The only thing this book does quite well and makes a ton of sense, and actually makes more sense than most of the like official Star Wars stuff, is that Leia's psychology is completely damaged by the destruction of Alderaan. She is really cold and merciless, which makes sense for a girl who has had to watch her entire planet get blown up by a bunch of space fascists. For example, the Imperials mistreat some of the natives in the pub, and Luke is really upset by this, but Leia basically just doesn't give a shit. The universe sucks, get over it. And also during the big battle with the Stormtroopers, once they win and the natives start committing, a couple of cheeky war crimes against the stragglers, Luke objects, but Leia is absolutely fine with just killing wounded Stormtroopers. Because these guys straight up killed everyone she knew and loved. So it gets something right. Like, that side of Leia's characterization is good, but the rest of it's pretty bad. More about Leia, it gives a ton of stuff to Luke that really she should be doing. For example, Luke is much more infiltration savvy when they're trying to get into the base. Like, he's the one trying to stop Leia from basically compromising them by being hot-headed. Like, she keeps, trying to talk back to the Imperials and stuff. It should definitely be the other way around, given the fact that she was a double agent in the Imperial Senate for her whole life. There is also the thing with the Yuzums, where it turns out Luke can speak Yuzum, but Leia can't. Well, for one, you have C-3PO, who is literally a droid designed to translate languages, so really, he should be the one translating, or at least we'll give him something to do. But him and R2 are completely pointless to the story, except for the one time R2-D2 manages to help him carjack something, if I remember rightly. But are you telling me that the farmer from buttfuck Tatooine can speak Yuzum, but the actual intergalactic diplomat can't? Like, this is my example when I say I think it's just sexism. Like, I don't throw that accusation around amazingly lightly, but this book's from the 70s. It's weird. And there's also this scene where it's revealed that Luke can swim, but Leia can't. What? Luke is from a desert planet. He literally farms moisture. There's no water. Why can he swim? But Leia, who's from basically Earth, can't? A rich girl from Earth that's never swum. You're telling me she didn't go to Alderaan version of Miami? As I said, absolutely just nonsensical. And so I'm going to talk about Grammel now, because he's set up as this really intimidating villain. His intro is fantastic, and then his authority is kind of undermined in the next scene when he talks to Asada. But then we literally don't see him again until Vader kills him for his incompetence. So he's a completely waste of his character. And, then there's Vader himself. His dialogue is completely off. I actually wonder if he'd even seen A New Hope at this point. And despite the obvious inconsistencies with Empire Strikes Back, which I forgive this book for, because, of course, it didn't exist yet, but Vader losing to Luke in a lightsaber fight is peanut brain. But this is really a Star Wars book in name only. A couple of other interesting observations is the fact that it has several elements that associate with sort of harder old-school sci-fi. Humans still refer to everyone as aliens. It makes sense for the Imperials to do this, because they kind of did in the EU anyway. But it also makes sense for Leia to consider non-humans to be aliens, because, they are to her. But Luke also calls non-humans aliens, which makes no sense. Humans are a minority on Tatooine, when you consider that Tusken Raiders and Jawas, just those two alone. But also look at Mos Eisley. There's very few humans in there. He should not view human as the default. And there is a lot of very out-of-place stuff. They will make religious references that really don't make any sense in the Star Wars context. They make a bunch of sort of pseudo-Christian remarks throughout. A good example of this is when Luke is trying to describe Vader's presence in the Force. He references, sulfur, which is clearly based on a Christian depiction of the devil and hell. And Luke actually quotes Alice in Wonderland at the end. That doesn't make any sense. But let me just talk about the story itself, because it is dog shit. This being a follow-up to Star Wars is a joke. So they only end up on the planet in the first place because women can't drive. Then they just happen to stumble upon the imps, who are just straight up just mining. They aren't even looking for the Kyber crystal. Then they meet Hala in the bar and she recruits them. Then they mud wrestle for no reason and get arrested, which is the only reason the imps are even after them. Then Vader shows up and gets his ass handed to him. Then he realizes the Kyber crystal exists and goes off to get it. But the plot is just random. And the weirdest thing is that you could easily fix it, like very easily fix it. Here's how I'd fix it. So, the Imperials are mining for the Kyber crystal specifically because after the destruction of the Death Star, the Empire is fucked, and Vader has heard about this magic gem that will make him basically omnipotent. The Rebels learn of this and send a small infiltration force to stop him. Leia goes as she has political skills, and Luke goes because he's the only Force user, and then you could have Hala be a local wise woman who is the one who tipped the Rebels off about it because she's been looking for the crystal. Just keep Hala the same. Then the story has actual stakes. Vader can just be the villain off the bat, we can just cut Grammel, and there is a race to find this crystal, sort of Indiana Jones style. It gives the story actual stakes to the greater war between the Rebels and the Empire. And I don't really know why they didn't just do this in the first place, I guess they just didn't think of it. But when Vader and Luke are fighting in the temple at the end, instead of Luke just basically getting lucky, Vader should have just handed his ass to him. But then Hala throws Luke the crystal, and he becomes a Force god or whatever, and uses the power to defeat Vader. And you get an actual Chekhov's gun payoff to the crystal, because you don't even get that in the book, like nobody actually uses it. Like, how easy was that? It's still not great, but it makes one hell of a lot more sense than this. But that's Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Despite it not being very good, if you're a Star Wars fan, this is, I think, a must-read. Just because it's super cool to be able to read some non-George Lucas Star Wars content that predates, basically, all of the mythos. So much is unexplored, and the galaxy feels like a very, very different place. It's just cool to see what might have been. It's like you're peering into an alternate reality. Another few references that I forgot that sort of got carried over is Kyber crystals, of course, are used to power lightsabers in, I don't know in Disney canon, because I don't like Disney canon. I think it's really shit. I don't know. Someone who actually keeps up with this shit can tell me in the comments if they're still called Kyber crystals, but like, in my Old Republic days, they were called Kyber crystals. They're spelled differently, but they're the things that power lightsabers. You get that. Oh, Vader is referred to as a Sith Lord here, which is cool. I know there's a deleted scene in A New Hope where I think that, it's an in General Tag. I don't remember. Anyway, that guy, there's an Imperial officer that refers to him as a Sith Lord, but it does mean that Sith and Jedi thing was, like, all the way back then, was, like, still very much known that Vader was a Sith Lord. So that's kind of a cool reference. But other than that, there's really not a lot going on here. It's, overall, like, 2 out of 5, it's not very good. But it's better than Star Wars Aftermath, so it's not the worst Star Wars book ever written. And if you're looking for something to read that's not Star Wars related, you can check out my novel, All Hail the Carrion King, and make sure to smash the like button and subscribe button, and come back for more fresh, low-effort content.
Buy my book! Buy my book! Before it's too late, people!